Hey there, I'm Cyber Chroma, and in how many games have you ridden a unicycle? Well, that's not all this game has going for it. Welcome to the first development log of the Handyman with a Unicycle, a game that I've been working on over the last little bit for a school project, but now that that's done, I plan to continue working on it in my free time, and hopefully it'll be my next big game or whatever. I quite like how it's turning out so far. The main idea is that you're a handyman working at a newly opened carnival, and you get to go around and fix rides before they break. But I have way more plans and stuff to talk about where I plan to take this game. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so this here is the Handyman with a Unicycle. You see there's a lot of stuff going on here, and not just this, but we have a few different scenes that we're going to be going between. This one is a lot. This one is not a lot, but it was an interesting thing that I want to show off at the end here. And then this is very temporary. But let's start at the thing where I want to start at. Let me just go into play mode and show you all what we've got currently. So first of all, we're riding a unicycle, as you'd expect from the name. Shocker, I know. First thing I want to say is that the movement here, I really like how it's turning out. The way this unicycle movement is happening, very cool, a lot going on with it, and yeah, feels very unicycle-y, with a lot of procedural animation going on. Animation that's not happening through like Blender animations or whatever, stuff that's just completely happening through code. Which, yeah, for like the leaning, for how the pedals are moving, and you know how we're like kind of bobbing up and down a bit. Yeah, very cool, and a lot of just little things here and there that add up to a cool looking player thing, which by the way, yeah, there's just a yellow rectangle on top right now and a thing just to tell the forward direction. Eventually we're gonna have an actual human model on here, presumably, but yeah. Also, this here is the only bit of actual animation that currently exists, this spinning animation when we take damage, because these red things are just hazards, which the code exists so that they could easily be turned into like projectiles and just a wide variety of different hazards, but works fine as a placeholder for now. We also got the camera that's moving around as you'd expect in most like platformer type games, which it takes a lot of elements from a lot of 3D platformers, except the fact that we can't jump. That is a very clear distinction. But apart from that, yeah. We also have just that the camera does zoom in when there's walls in the way, so nice quality of life things there. So now, as I'm about to fail our test level here, let me just go into my pause screen and restart it. I'll get to this stuff eventually, but you may have noticed that there was a bunch of circles everywhere on all of these things. Well, what are these? These are placeholders for rides. So circus rides like Ferris wheel, or those like egg scrambler things, different spinny rides. Yeah, basically rides be breaking and we gotta go up to them and fix them before they break completely. And that's the current main gameplay mechanic. And we just, have this sandbox of different rides all around. Now, the idea would be for actual levels, we'd have a lot more hazards, just a lot more stuff going on in the levels would be the idea. I'd like the idea of basically there will be at least one hazard between any two rides. So it's a lot of just having to weave around, dodging different things as you're trying to get to all the rides. So, yeah, and just a lot more stuff beyond that. I have a lot of ideas for where I want to take the game, but it's doing pretty decent in its current state. So, yeah. There's also these power-ups that we can pick up. There's 3 versions, and they can stack, as you can see in the bottom corner there. We have a speed power-up, the green one's an invincibility power-up, and then the blue one actually makes you repair rides faster, which I didn't really get to show off, but that is what that do. And yeah, they stack with how you pick them up, or you can be holding sort of one of each at a given time. Also, right now we have our invincibility. And then there's that fixing rides faster. Ooh. Another thing you can't really see is because behind my head, if I flip me to the other side, you can see over there that there are strikes. We have 3 strikes, 3 rides that are allowed to break before we fail the level. If I wait long enough, then you'll see some break, and then those will start to get some X's. We also have a mini map down in that corner. That's just a camera in the sky that's looking down. That's just showing off, the overview of the level, and you can see the circles, be able to tell where rides are breaking and all that. And then we have a nice arrow where the player is. Now, currently, it's relative to the actual character's forward direction. I might change it to what way the camera is facing. There's a lot of different changes that I plan to make with this. Actually, a few things that might get removed. like this clock behind my head, I think one big change we're going to be making is changing the system of how that is working. Although in a second, I think a ride is about to break, so you can see, bam, an X. And then there's actually a little smoke and fire kind of particle effect going on. It worked enough as a temporary thing. There's a lot of placeholder assets here that will eventually get overhauled for actual art, ideally. We also got speed boost, just launch you around, because fun. Oh, the thing I actually went across that didn't even explain, we have these tight ropes. Also about to fail my level. Let me just restart real quick. We have these tight ropes that is more circus-related obstacles that, as you can see, they just kind of flow up and down on their own. This is all done through code, which is also pretty cool. More procedural animation stuff going on. And we can ride it, and we stick to it, and then we have to lean left and right in order to stay on them. So that's pretty cool. One other thing I plan to eventually add is having actual UI for how much you can balance before you fall. Similar to some skateboarding games when you're grinding on rails, some of like that UI, I plan to potentially have that here. There's a ton here already, but there's also a ton to be added or improved and whatnot. But yeah, it's shaping up quite nicely as it currently stands. So let me move me back to the other side of the screen. And over there, you can see a clock that is actually a 3D model that's like following the camera. Actually, as is all the UI elements. Well, not the one down there, just the strikes behind my head and the clock over there. That's actually just 3D models that follow the camera around. Actually, it's on a separate camera that's rendered completely on top of the player camera. Long story short. But that clock, the idea with it currently is, one, it shows what day you're on, and it shows sort of the opening and closing times of the carnival, and you're trying to just last as the clock turns until it gets to basically everything being green. In this case, it being 5 p.m. So yeah, it's a nice way of doing time stuff. I might eventually also have kind of like a day-night cycle thing going on, something I wanted to experiment with. I think right now it's still using the default Unity skybox, but yeah, it would be a cool thing to just have things change in the level as the day goes on. So next, I think that covers a lot of what we have in this scene. No, it doesn't. I completely forgot about something. Over here we have this hidden collectible here, and the long story short of this is it's a balloon cart, which is relevant, connects to the these power-ups, that being also balloons. Oh, I died. No, 'cause I'm not even trying to play the game. If you repair this, then balloon power-ups will last for double the time. Now, how do you repair it? There's no option to do that. This is my way of having like an optional difficulty spike for a big reward. Basically, somewhere else in the level is this hidden helium tank that you gotta pick it up and then bring it back, and then you repair this, and then ta-da, it's fixed. It also just has a cool way of actually getting fixed. And then now power-ups, they're golden, and they last twice as long. So yeah, that's pretty neat. So with all of that, I now want to go back to my hub, which also, curtain transition, pretty cool, just it's a nice way of going between the scenes. So this hub world isn't much yet, but it will be eventually. There's also some temporary code that if you fall, it just resets you. Eventually, I'd like to have, if you fall off, you get reset in kind of like a Mario Kart Lakitu kind of way, where you just get picked up and dropped. Or there is, you just spawn near where you fell off. That's something I'd like to do, but yeah, for now, that's not what happens, because I just didn't have the time to integrate that. So now I want to show off this tutorial level. For the school project that I was doing this for, I wanted to more in-depth show off all the different mechanics. And yeah, I have this tutorial level for doing that. Now, when I go into it, there's going to be some voice acting from me. Prepare for amazing voice acting, so I'm just going to be quiet while it goes. Enjoy.
Welcome to Peter Avion's yesteryear universally shifting carnival. You're our new handyman, Handy Harold Henderson. Let me show you the ropes. To get the ball rolling, or more so the unicycle rolling, use WASD and use the mouse to move around. As well, feel free to pause the game at any time by pressing the escape key. You can also use this menu to skip this tutorial if you think you know what you're doing and want to get along with the real thing.
Yeah, so that was my amazing voice acting as Peter Avion. I highly doubt he will sound like that in the final game. I will improve my voice acting game, hopefully. But yeah, so we have this test level. First of all, I know that the mini-map down there does not look very good in this level, but with better art that isn't just the same repeating texture going everywhere. Hopefully it will. Also, I do have some ideas for almost like a replacement for that mini map that I might experiment with, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, first of all, face in a mountain. Nice thing there. Yeah, this is a little test level that I made where you're going through and shows off the different things you can interact with.
Now here we have a circus ride. It's totally a ride, just go with it. It's your job to repair it. Now you can do that by getting close and holding space.
Yeah.
If you get interrupted, the ride will stop getting fixed.
Yeah, so that's
now
that.
you
And
may
then I
notice
think I
some
explained the
things
UI
around
elements
the
in a moment.
First, there is a clock. For now, it is
Mhm.
frozen, but in the real levels, it will tick until closing time. Your goal will be to keep fixing rides until
Yep.
the day is done. Now, I don't care if a ride breaks here or there, you'll just get some strikes. But if too many rides breaks, we'll have a lawsuit on our hands. And if that union of clowns gets even a dime of my money because of your dilly-dallying, you're fired! You'll also find a nice mini-map to show you where rides are breaking.
Okay, so that was that. My favorite line in the game so far. Or you'll be fired. We'll launch over here. Okay, there's just gonna be a lot of me talking. I'm gonna save more of the explanation. Like, just gonna let the tutorial level do as it do, and I'll do more
Watch out
explaining
there.
afterwards.
Spinning out will really slow you down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also donut. Yeah.
Now, we wouldn't be a circus
Yeah,
if
don't
we
wanna
didn't
interrupt
have
myself
tight
too
ropes.
much.
You can move across as you normally would with W and S, but now you also have to bounce in the wind with A and D. Lean too far and you'll fall off.
Yeah. Ooh, level design. Yeah. Mhm. I'd also say that can guarantee that none of this is going to appear in the final game. This was kind of just practice for level design, and also for the sake of my school project thing, I wanted to explain the different things that I had programmed way more in depth than I actually will in the game. In the actual game, rather than having a dedicated tutorial like this, I imagine I would, as good tutorials do, integrate it a lot more just into the normal gameplay. And yeah, so that's the plan.
Pop that balloon, it'll help you out. This one will give you a speed up. In the bottom left, you can see how long you have left with it.
A nice cave. And yep.
Now this one will make you immune to damage for a short while. Go ahead, ram those hazards.
Mm-hmm. Also, I do know that there's a few spots where you can kind of escape the bounds of the level, but I tried to prevent a lot of that, but I did not prevent
Lastly,
it well
we
enough.
have the quick repair. With this, you can fix rides twice as fast. If you finish your job quicker, you'd be fine with a pay cut, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then there's this.
Oh my, it's a
Which I did already
balloon
explain,
cut.
but
it's
I'll
broken
let it
now,
happen
but
again.
when it's fixed, balloon power-ups will last twice as long.
Also,
There's
yes,
one of
these are the
hidden
same wheels
throughout
I copied the
every
model.
level. Unlike the rides, this one needs a special something to
Oh
be
no, I
fixed.
can't go this
You
way.
might
What am I
find it
supposed to
around here
do?
somewhere. Oh hey, that cave looks interesting.
Finished the line yet? I did. Okay, oops.
You found it, the golden helium.
What's this?
Carry this back to the cart, and you can repair it. Be careful though, get hit and you'll drop the tank, and have to pick it up again.
Yeah, so the thing I didn't mention with these is that, or before anyway, is that if you take damage, then you drop this. It's just my idea for doing a collectible in kind of a different way and providing this optional challenge. Yeah, so that gets fixed. And also I had, when you entered the cave, it spawned this ramp to force you to kind of go around and then...
With
the
your
way I designed
power-ups
it,
lasting
the
longer, you can see how
Now-
they stack. You can have
Yeah,
one of
last
each
twice as
power-up
long.
active at a time, and grabbing one of the same will refresh its
Gotta
timer.
catch them all. Huzzah. It was cool just how you can see how they stack and how they reorder themselves based on which one's closest to running out, and yeah, very cool. Huzzah. Didn't you get all of them, but I guess I did.
Training's complete.
And this is the last bit of voice
now
I can hear.
stand on the circle to go back to the hub, where you can try a test level and see if you can last the day. And as a professional con man, I'll let you in on a little secret. You can use the plus and minus keys to automatically win or lose the day. Now, my handyman, get to work
If I had the
and
speed
make
still, I
me
think I can
the
get a
greatest
faster
carnival in the world.
You already finished. Okay, I massively misjudged how long things to go through. All right, so also there's a second face in a mountain because there can be. So that was my test level, or that was the tutorial, and then we got the test level that we started off with. That this is a more accurate, almost like a mix of the two is how I imagine gameplay kind of being. More, yeah, like going from point A to, well, going between these different rides being like an excuse to go from point A to point B, while there's just tons of hazards in between that you're dodging a lot of. And as I said, there will be lots more hazards, a lot more just things thrown in here. This is just the start of what I have planned. So I think that's, oh, there's also this pause screen, yeah, as I said. Yeah, that's all the gameplay stuff that I wanted to show off. And now we can, well, that's as an overview. Now I want to get into some more things that I want to show off, how they were done from the Unity end. Starting off with the player himself, Handy Harold Henderson. That's the name that I come up with him. Actually, before I do that, here I do have the game design document, game pitch for my class. That was a lot of the planning for the demo that you just saw. There's also, I had one part of this, I had to compare it to some other games to say how my game is going to be better, which sure. But this is, yeah, the gist of this. Most of this is just words that explain what you just saw visually. This might be what our character looks like. We'll see when I get to that Blender modeling. And yeah, and there's some stuff here that I wanted to add later. Yeah, so that's that. But I'm not gonna bore you by reading through all of that. Okay, so player. One thing I want to show off. First of all, here's all the different code bits on him. You guys can see that? I think you can. Hopefully it's not too small. First thing that I want to show off to explain how some of the magic is happening behind the leaning is showing that what happens when I set a certain number here to 0. And then also turn on gizmos so that you can see colliders and stuff. So, I'd prefer if the T wasn't there, but I guess that'll do. So you see this? This is basically how the movement is happening. We have a sphere collider and then a capsule collider. That capsule collider is actually just a trigger collider at the moment, which does make collision here weird if we go under slopes like this, but that's just the way it currently is. I'm going to try and make it better eventually. Trying to make that capsule collider a proper collider was having some problems, but stuff that'll be sorted out eventually, hopefully. But most of the movement actually happens from the sphere collider that matches the dimensions of the wheel, except being a sphere. When we move, and this is just sorcery how this actually managed to work. Most games that use or Unity games that use rigid bodies, you'll have that when you press a button, you apply a force in a direction and that moves the player. This almost does that. Instead of doing exactly what I just said, using WASD doesn't actually make you move inherently in this game. Using WASD just makes you lean. That's all the controls the user input actually does. And then I have other code that basically says, oh no, we're falling, quickly, apply force so that we don't fall over. So it's these two bits of code that are wrestling with each other. One that is, as the user, you're trying to make them fall over, and then other code that's stop that, make them not fall over, apply forces so that we don't hit the ground. And it just works, frankly. It shouldn't work as well as it does, but yeah. So with that, the direction doesn't actually matter for the moving around. You can be moving this way, and it's just because it's a sphere collider, it just works. So then if I hit Control Z to undo that one change I just made, the turning here actually is just for visuals. It's on a child game object that's just turning around depending on the way that we're going, either facing forward or facing backwards. I had it as a thing because we're a unicycle, and because it can, if we're facing the opposite way, we're about to fail the level, so I'm just gonna restart it real quick. Okay, wait, that means I have to redo the 10, the number that I just set to being 0. One moment. Yeah, let me fix my code. Yeah, so that results in, we can move in we move towards the direction that we're facing, or we can move backwards if we were moving backwards. It's a little funky, but it works quite well. Moving up hills and stuff works nicely. I do have some ideas for some refining I want to do that's going to improve slope movement, but we'll get there eventually. So yeah, that's mostly how the movement is happening here. The wheels, and by extension the pedals, are just turning based on getting our velocity and then turning the wheels that much, or like a certain amount based on that, and also just works. Speed boost just give you a sudden boost in a direction, which just works based on the rest of the movement just happening through physics anyways. Rigid bodies get to do a lot of the work for us. Pretty nice. Yeah, so that's a lot of the player. Next thing, there's actually, I think the thing I made basically after the player. That's not what I meant to do. I meant to turn off gizmos. Over here, these tight ropes that I spent way too long making and hope it'll actually pay off. Yeah, as I said, this is a lot of procedural movement that's going on. Or, yeah, procedural movement of having the different parts move up and down. I guess I can try and show off what that's looking like. So if I click this one, it does kind of try to move in the editor. It looks a little bit funky in the editor because the way that the scene view doesn't update every frame like as if we were in play mode. I can show off the code. I don't know, like, I don't want to be here all day explaining every nook and cranny of how this game currently exists, especially because a lot of it's probably going to be changing as we continue to develop it. But I mean, here you go. Ooh, coding. This isn't all of it. This is just the code that makes it so that when we're not on the tightrope, this is how it moves up and down through the magic of line renderers. That just, yeah, make a line exist that have different segments, and I move the different segments up and down through different math functions. And what's pretty cool is that I just have a lot of ways that I can mess with this, a lot of just different tools I can use to, yeah, have the tightropes look like they're being more windy or a lot more like loose or being completely rigid. Yeah, so cool options I have there. On the player, then I actually have, I actually don't know. I don't remember where I have this code, but somewhere, if I just go in player, I have the code player tightrope move. I think this is it. Yeah, this is how the player moves across tightropes, which is also very long. And as I said, if I went through every line of code here, we'd be here all day. If there's anything that you're curious of knowing more about how different parts of this were done, then ask in the comments and I can try to elaborate further. But I mean, here, as in a very brief overview, you can see the functions that I have that that are called in the order that they're called, that just contribute to different aspects of the movement. Some of these being a lot more just for the visual flair, like the turning of the pedals and the wheels and the kind of bobbling that happens as the character moves. That's all for just visual fidelity. But yeah, it works nicely. Anyways, so yeah, those are the tightropes. I think the next thing I made, if I'm kind of going in the order I made things, I think the next thing was these hazards, which is just when you touch a hazard, just disable the player moving for a few seconds, play that animation. I have some blinking that goes on just from taking the player's mesh renderer and just turning it on and off a few times. And that's how you stun the player for hazards. There's one addendum to that where I do have that if you take damage on a tightrope, then you automatically fall off the tightrope. It's just a thing I wanted to do. I can play around more with later. That would be more for like, if you're going along a really long tightrope and then there's like projectiles coming at you, that I thought could be a cool thing. Have some circusy cannons and stuff coming out of them. I want to have a lot of like circus themed hazards, which would be cool to have. I'll get into it later, but I have just a lot of ideas for where I want to continue to expand this game. I think the next thing I made was the speed boost, which is just when you touch them, apply force in direction of the boost. I put it on an angle, and then to dot, it's a ramp. Yeah, that's all there is to that. Doing rigid body physics stuff made that, yeah, a lot easier than it would have been to try to do that completely manually. All right, next, I think was a lot of this UI stuff where you can see that actually I didn't really use canvases for a lot of this. A lot of it is just here in the world. I mean, I don't remember why I did that for this text, but I know for the, I did that so that certain elements could be rendered on their own cameras and I have reasons for why I did things the way I did them. Yeah, so like these UI elements that aren't actually UI elements, they're just separate, like they're just 3D models that are in the world that follow the camera. Or actually, we do have quite a few cameras going on here. I can show you real quick that we have. So first of all, this camera pivot that is just a object in the world that our camera, if I turn on gizmos, you can see the camera. The camera just orbits around, and this is how the camera can orbit around the player pretty easily. I'm gonna undo that. Then we got the main camera here that can turn relative to itself if I want it to. That doesn't currently really happen though, but yeah. It does zoom in, as we have here, when there's any environment stuff in the way between the player and the camera. It zooms in. It's a nice quality of life thing to have. We have a camera for all of the for the sprites. What sprites do I have? I don't remember. I made this a little bit ago. I don't entirely remember what the sprites camera. Oh no, right. It's for the circles. Yeah. All the circles on the rides, so that they are rendered on top of all the 3D models in the scene. Just these circles. Yeah, they're on their own camera, and I can then control how they get rendered. Then we have a UI camera that's rendering all the different UI stuff, where one of those is this background that is, at one point was used to transition between scenes. Now I think this is used when we go into the pause screen. This turns to different colors. Yeah, that is a thing. Then we got our HUD UI, that is just all the different things around the screen. And then we have our winning, the winning UI, which is, oh right, this was the reason why I had some of this stuff being 3D objects, because I never showed this off. Let me go show this off real quick. Just that if I have a cheat button that makes me win automatically, in our you win screen, I have some 3D models here, and it was just easier to line this up with the text if this was all just not canvas things. This is actually just the balloon cart model. It's just flattened, and this comes from the same models up here. So currently we have that when you beat a level, it records the status of the balloon cart, whether it's broken or whether you fixed it, and then how many strikes you have left. I can quickly show that off, what it looks like for those things to change. The strikes thing, if it's not 3, then it just has an X. That'll take too long to wait for a ride to break. But if I do real quick, bear with me, go through and repair the balloon cart, voila, and then cheat to win the level, then you can see that it's fixed. And the idea would be these are things that get saved into the hub and would be used to unlock things. So to kind of 100% the game, you have to beat every level with having fixed all the balloon carts and having beaten every level without getting any strikes, is the idea. We'll see how much of that ends up changing later on, but yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, that's some of the UI elements and how they exist and different things being rendered on top of each other. We got the environment. It's not that much. I mean, the environment in my tutorial level is a different story entirely. I don't think I want to save anything. Hopefully I didn't make any changes I didn't mean to make. Yeah, so we have this big environment. This was all made by me in Blender. This whole thing was made through terrain stuff. I can go and show off what that model is looking like. I mean, you can see it here, but over in Blender territory, that be looking like this. It's a pretty big file, so I imagine it'll take some time to open. While it's doing that, I'll show off something else. We got all the voice lines, and they just happen by there's just these different massive sphere colliders at different points in the level that when we go through them, it plays a voice line. There's one right on the player's spawn point so that they have to, like, they spawn and they trigger that one immediately. And yeah, that's how I did the voice line things. And yeah, you can just see the different parts of the level here. Here, there's like a little cave, I think. I thought it would look cool. This would look a lot better, as I said, if it wasn't just the same texture all around, but I was running out of time when I made this, so yeah, this is what we got. Ideally, in the actual game, you know, have more environmental stuff going on, having more textures, having an actual skybox. There's a lot to be desired graphically, but I think this is turning out pretty good so far. I made this in about 2 days, so yeah, for 2 days worked pretty good. And by that I mean the whole, like, planning what this level is going to look like and building it. So Yeah, it was a lot. Okay, and this actually loaded up so you can see. Here's also the cave part down here. I have some spheres that initially were just placeholders for where there would be like hazards and different things like that. If I go to here, I think you'll see, yeah, they have different colors that had different meanings when I was making this. So yeah, pretty cool, and probably we'll experiment with this more as we make other levels. Yeah, so that is that. And that basically brings us to most of what I wanted to show for the Handyman with a Unicycle as it currently is. In terms of all that gameplay that you saw. One other little addendum that I wanted to tag on to the end here, which is something I've been experimenting with, and also this does have a skybox that I didn't make. That'll is part of that improving graphical stuff that I mentioned. This is better shown through showing. Show first, explain later. This stuff going on here. What if I told you that all of this is happening through direct manipulation of transform values? There's not a single rigid body in this scene, not even on the spinning cube here. This is all done through, manipulating transforms and manually rotating stuff. This is my attempt at doing what I call, well, this probably is a name that exists. I'm not original in having the name, but procedural animation, where I'm just trying to do some animation things, but through code rather than animating them manually, which leads me to be able to just change values on objects and have them behave differently. For example, the big block in the sky, what's that? We want it to rotate differently? Well, how about bam, rotating differently, wow. And the antennas just respond, they just work and rotate like that. Now, these ones are also, they're leaning a lot more to the right. Or am I that way? Because I'm mirrored. That's because like I have some values to be able to pretend that wind is a thing. Over, if I find the antennas, it's like these floor ones. I also have different variations that controlling how bendy they are. This one can't really bend. It's just a thing that just moves like this. This one has 2 bendy points, so it can turn a little something like this. It just has one place where it can bend off of. This one has 3, and then this one has 10. So that's just, how I constructed those for almost like different levels of performance, I suppose. One cool thing that these can also do is that if I turn you off and go here, turn off the wind that I was messing around with, this and this and this. Un momento. So now this one's not moving. I can move it around myself with the inspector stuff. The base isn't moving with it because the object is selected. But not only do they like move around, but they move to go back to their like original, whatever position they started at. So that doesn't have to be just facing straight up. There's still like a little bit of problems with it. It's not perfect, but it's something that I've been experimenting around with for different ways to have cool stuff going on in the environments and have it just work nicely. There's also like a gravity influence. So like these ones are like droopy a little bit to act like gravity is a thing. I can mess with that as much as I want. But yeah, it's just cool to, as I said, it's still not perfect, but it's, stuff like this. Things I've been experimenting with to be able to have more background environmental stuff to just make levels feel more alive. I'm going to be continuing to experiment with stuff like this. And like these antennas, they don't have to be antennas. These could be trees that are blowing in the wind, or flowers, or like something had like a tail or like big droopy ears, or there's just a lot of different ways that I can apply this code. I try to make it very generic so that it can be applied in a lot of scenarios that I thought would be cool. On top of that, even just this spinning code that actually, I have a hover script, a spinning script, and then a growing and shrinking script that gets used in a lot of different assets in this game so far. Like this just has this generic spin code where I put it in a direction, and by extension, like these kind of act like intensity amounts, and it'll spin in that direction as you saw. There's also just some nice lighting going on here. I did my best at trying to have decent lighting for a bright daytime scene, and it turned out quite well. If I find the post-processing real quick, this is what it looks like without, and this is what it looks like with. So yeah, looking pretty cool and stuff I would play around with more. Now, one thing I also want to do is that this project, I for some reason thought I made it in the universal render pipeline, but I didn't. So I actually do want to switch this over from the default render pipeline Unity has to the universal render pipeline so that I can do some stuff with shaders, VFX graph, cool things we can make with that. And yeah, so okay, enough of that, and I don't want to save any of those changes. Back to this level. This is the main, our main scene over here. Yeah, we got just all the different things that I've made so far, but there's a lot more coming. So I think that's basically everything I wanted to show off in terms of the game. I do have, as I said, a lot planned for where I want to take this game. Mostly just like thought in my head. I have like a few things written down in a bunch of different little notepad documents here. As an example, just a taste of what's to come. For potential level ideas, I never actually said anything about the story with this game. I have ideas for what I want the story of this game to be, and I guess I could ramble about that for a few minutes. This video's getting quite long, but I'm gonna keep rambling anyway. So the main idea is that you are Handy Harold Henderson, the repairman at this new carnival that's opened up by Peter Avion, which I don't know if his name will change, but like that is a thing because of an acronym. The name of the carnival is the Peter Avion's Yesteryear Universally Shifting Carnival, which acronyms to the Pay Us Carnival, which I thought was funny. So their business model is that every day, their carnival, they tear it all down, move somewhere else, and then build it all up again. Every single day, which is why rides are breaking all the time, but also gives the excuse for every level just gets to be in a completely different environment wherever the carnival happens to be hosted in this particular day. And I have a big list of potential, like, as an example, I don't know how many of these will make it into the actual game, but the different levels that the carnival could exist at. So we got a pier, a boardwalk, a tundra, a volcano, a concert, on cars on a highway, metropolis, mountainside, nuclear wasteland, crumbling cave, factory, jungle, swamp, island, space, junkyard, ocean floor, spooky mansion, graveyard, museum, college campus, pirate ship, desert, military base, skyscraper rooftops, sewer, slums, train, subway station, football stadium, prison, upside downtown, which is a name that I thought was interesting to play around with maybe, coral reef, hotel lobby, rich guy's mansion, a forest park, either in fall or spring, a zoo, an opera house, a construction site, a barber shop, potentially being some play on words mistake with a barbershop quartet, Victorian London looking city, commercial airplane, hot air balloons, skate park, arcade, mall, inside another carnival or amusement park, office building, spa, North Pole, parade, ice rink, tropical resort, different abandoned buildings, library, castle, back alley, movie theater, Wild West theme, airport, grocery store, underground city, subway tunnels, submarine, Atlantis-style city, aquatic base, some kind of heist, ruined city, factory of some famous product, Roman Colosseum, maze, like a hedge maze or a corn maze, haunted house as a Halloween attraction type thing, North Pole, I said North Pole already, I think, wedding, Dragon's Keep, canyon, waterfall, in free fall, like this idea would be like, it starts on the top of a cliff, something breaks, and it's all of the different rides just in free fall, but as you're going down, you're still fixing rides anyway, because I thought that would be just cool visually. A chef's kitchen, or like a fancy restaurant, a campsite, ancient temple, snowy forest, or news station. I think a few of those are actually listed twice, but oh well, you get the idea. Now, this list was me just coming up with any setting I could possibly think of, like, ever. That's like more in the list than would probably actually be like number of levels in the game, but that just shows you what I've been thinking of for the different environments and different scenarios that this game could exist in, allowing for different kinds of hazards and obstacles as you're going around and repairing rides. Further than this, right now, the only like level mechanic thing is you repairing rides. And in that tutorial, just you getting to the end of the level just with the way that the nature of that tutorial was. But I do want to experiment with potentially having some levels have kind of different objectives, using some of the code that went into the fixing a ride and potentially applying that in different scenarios. Like one that comes to mind immediately is if you had a level in a submarine where it's breaking and you got like leaks coming in different places, so you have to go and repair all the leaks before they all like have the green circle like reach 0, because then I don't know, the submarine will explode or something. Yeah, something like that where you're trying to just like fix a bunch of leaks in a submarine, but that just is, it's the same kind of code, it's the same idea of repairing stuff, but just applied in different scenarios. And I think that there's a lot of cool things that could come out of this, especially, well, just eventually when it graphically looks better. Like, as I said, actually having a person here. I've been trying to get better at 3D modeling and just Blender stuff in general recently, and yeah, hopefully it'll pay off. Even doing some like animation stuff, more than just, you know, making a walk cycle, making, you know, jumping animation, stuff like that, doing more. My like far off idea with this is it'd be cool to have cutscenes, which technically I have had a game with cutscenes before, sort of. So the same kind of idea, but it'd be cool to just see years later what more I can do. Just, yeah, make a cool game. But anyways, I think I've been, no. I was gonna say I've been rambling long enough, but two more things I want to mention is, one, I just got reminded, I do want to have bosses in this game. That's how far I'm potentially going with this. Actually, yeah, taking these mechanics and applying it in boss fights. More of the story with this is that the main antagonist of this game is the Safety Corporation that's trying to shut your carnival down for being unsafe. But through some, for the sake of story and whatever, legal shenanigans, whatever, they can't shut you down because no one's actually gotten hurt in your carnivals or whatever, because no rides have actually broken. So as long as no rides break, then you can't get sued or something, which is why you're trying to fix rides and all that. Or just something like that, or just make just enough sense to justify the gameplay, right? A lot of this is coming from a gameplay first, story second, but I've been thinking a lot about just the different scenarios that we could have that just would be cool to experience in the game. And I say the Safety Corporation, that acronyms to something, and most of the people there are gonna look like different clown-like people, or circus stereotypes. You got like a magician, maybe like a strongman, a ringmaster, just different stuff like that turned into boss fights, I think would be pretty cool. So, and then the other thing is, yeah, just in terms of like, I have different lists of potential things. I gave you my level ideas spiel. I have a boss ideas spiel, and just a bunch of different potential obstacle ideas, like obstacles and hazards and all that, and even some character ideas. I'm still trying to figure out characters, but yeah, I think I've gone on long enough, and you will see more of that as it develops. So yeah, that is the current status of the Handyman with a Unicycle. So that was the first development log of the Handyman with a Unicycle. I hope you found it interesting. This is a game I plan to continue working on for a while, and you should see it change quite a bit. I don't know when the next development log I'll be making is, because I gotta actually make progress to be able to make such a video. But if you want to see more of me working on this game, then I'm streaming on Twitch now, most of which will be working on this game. So come by, say hello, and you can contribute ideas to the game, make suggestions, all that fun, funky stuff. Yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be working on next with this game. I think I might focus on more of that procedural animation stuff that I was showing off with, like the antennas and more stuff like that, and replacing a lot of the placeholder art that exists currently, like swapping out the player for an actual human model, and just doing more planning for where I want to take the game and all. But you can look forward to all that in the future. So, think that'll do it for this video. If you liked it, look forward to more. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you around.